we'll start off first with shape. So with every shape that you draw, it has a certain personality. And I'll just list a few of the adjectives or personality traits that are often associated with these shapes, okay? So with the circle, these tend to be associated with happy, optimistic, friendly, harmless, safe, good, warm, welcoming, and approachable personality traits. So characters who tend to be more round in shape often visually convey these sorts of traits. And if we will go next to the triangle, and characters who tend to have a more pointed and triangular shape tend to be more aggressive, active, unpredictable, even crazy. They can be dynamic, chaotic, they can be risk takers, and even dangerous and evil. So you'll often see villains being designed with more points and triangular shapes. And then we'll go into the square. And adjectives usually associated with characters designed with this shape is safe, comfortable, reliable, ordered, organized, stable, static, honest, trustworthy, strong, and stubborn. Okay, I know that's a lot of words, okay, but it's something. Shapes should come naturally to you. Like it should just visually convey what sort of personality your character would have. So now that we have gone through that, we also have to understand that characters are made of multiple shapes. Characters don't tend to just have one shape unless it's very simple, right? But if you think about characters from movies, TV shows, maybe like superheroes, they're not just one shape. And so, yeah, so with combinations of multiple shapes, we might have adjectives that deviate from the typical descriptions that I just mentioned. And I'll show you some examples here, okay? So for this circle, we have Poe, Russell, and Dr. Eggman. Clearly, one of them is not like the other, right? And I'll give you a few seconds just to see. Maybe you can guess. And you're right, it's Dr. Eggman. And the reason being is that Dr. Eggman, compared to Poe and Russell, has more triangular shapes. Like you can see it in his pointy shoes, his spiky mustache, and even with the shape of his like eyebrows, you can see that he's not a very nice guy compared to Poe and Russell. And if you look at even with Poe's limbs, there are no pointy. Oh, well, someone joined. Welcome.
Welcome.
You'll notice that even his limbs are rounded in like his elbows and his knees. And that generally gives off the typical friendly, good character vibes, whereas Dr. Eggman is clearly a villain, even without knowing them in their movies or their games. Okay, next one, the triangle. So as I said, the triangle tends to be like risk taker, active, dangerous, evil, which you can definitely see in Maleficent. You can see triangles in her horns, her face, even her coat, even her bird. It's triangles all over. And as for Phineas, he may not be evil like Maleficent, but he is a risk taker. He's very active. Um, and then we have Patrick Star. He is a triangle and he is spontaneous, but because of like the rounded bottom of Patrick Star, he tends to give off that friendly vibe that Poe and Russell also have. You know, comedic reliefs tend to be rounder in their design, right? Okay. And then next we have this square, my examples here are Mr. Fredrickson, Ferb, and Kingpin. Again, one of these are not like the other. Kingpin is obviously evil. And if we look at Mr. Fredrickson, he's a nice old man, very stable. Ferb, he's like the silent, quiet intellectual who bounces off Phineas, who's more active, right, with his triangular shape. And as for Kingpin, squares are interesting, especially when you make them bigger and they look more intimidating that way, especially with the way that Kingpin's head is so much smaller than his body. And that makes him look daunting and scary. Like imagine seeing him and you're like, oh no, he's someone you shouldn't mess with for sure. And that leads me to my next point with shapes. Exaggerate proportions. With character design, especially in animation, we tend to exaggerate certain parts of the character to emphasize maybe a trait or make them more visually interesting. So ways you can do that would be like, for example, we have a base design of like this mouse looking creature, and you can choose to maybe exaggerate the ears to maybe make them look cuter because the head is smaller, or make them maybe good at listening because their ears are bigger. Or you can exaggerate their eyes. With this example, it really reminds me of Mort, from Madagascar, where his eyes are so big and like you just want to cuddle him because he's so cute. So that's one of the ways you can make them either cuter or more visually interesting and have more personality compared to your base design. You can even make the nose bigger just for fun. It has a different look and has a different vibe. If you compare them to the base design, you can even change the overall shape of the head and the eyes even. Just changing the eyes of the one on the top left makes it look, a little evil because of the triangles. As I've said before, triangles tend to be associated with villains and maybe more active characters, risk takers. So there's many things you can do with character design. It's more of how you combine and exaggerate these shapes, and the possibilities are really endless. And I'll also go into more subtle character design, okay? Because if you're drawing humans, maybe it's a more anime style, like it doesn't have to be cartoons. Even changing slight details of your character can really change the impression and the personality that they give off. For example, with these characters that I drew, I just changed the eyes and I kept everything the same. With the first one, I made their eyes more triangular. The second one, more circular. First one, more line out like square, I would say. Okay. And they all give off a different personality. The first one seems more cunning, sly, a bit charming even. The second one seems innocent, nice, friendly. And then the third one is more laid back and calm. And yeah, that's one way you can do subtle character design. Okay. And then I'll go into color, finally. Yay. So with color, I'll go through color symbolism, color schemes, and aesthetics. Okay. So with color symbolism, every color has associations to certain things. For example, red is associated with love, danger, fire, anger. These are just a few to list. There's definitely more, and red can also, these associations can also be personalized because everyone has their own experiences. So you might think one color can be associated with this, but it can also be associated with another thing. But these are just the most common ones, okay? And then yellow. Yellow is generally associated with warmth, curiosity, energy, and joy. Oh wait, sorry, if people are taking notes and I'm going too fast, just let me know. All right. I know I talk fast and I talk nervous. Sorry. All right. And then there's orange. Orange is associated with confidence, also warmth and friendliness. And then green. Green is often associated with money, growth, nature, and disgust. Oops. And then there's blue. Blue is commonly associated with knowledge.
Hi, welcome. Someone just entered.
Hello. Okay. Blue is commonly associated with knowledge, peace, rain, and sadness. And then we have purple, mystery, royalty, magic, and fear. I'm trying to talk slower because I noticed some people are writing. I'm sorry, maybe if I went too fast. Okay. And then a good example, actually like one of the best examples for this would be Inside Out. If you guys have watched the movie, yeah, like each of these characters are clearly embodying a certain emotion. The first one being joy, yellow, blue, green, blue is associated with sadness, but because the main color is yellow, she is clearly supposed to be joy. And then the next one being disgust, as I said, green, and then sadness, the blue girl, and she's even in her body posture, you can tell that she's sadness and that, you know, she doesn't have the same personality as joy as well. And then, as I said, red is anger, and then purple is fear or anxiety. Yes. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Now, your characters usually might not have just one color, right? And so this is where color schemes come into play. The most common color schemes would be analogous and complementary. Analogous color schemes are, if you have a color wheel, analogous colors are sitting right next to each other on the color wheel. So as I've marked them on the presentation, that would be like blue, indigo, purple. Yeah, that's one example of analogous color scheme. And when you're using analogous color schemes, those tend to demonstrate harmony. And unlike complementary colors that show contrast, so in a color scheme, complementary colors tend to be across each other. So an example would be red and green, blue and orange, purple and yellow. And these colors tend to show that there's a clash or a contrast with these colors. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's evil or wrong. It's just a contrast. Okay. And with all of these colors and like associations, we can go into aesthetics. Yeah, we have city pop, we have Y2K, light academia. Like now more than ever, there are so many aesthetics that are created, especially on Pinterest or like Instagram. Like even artists tend to have their own aesthetic or brand, where they tend to stay within a certain group of colors. They use maybe vibrant colors like city pop or Y2K as well, or maybe muted colors and brown, beige, white, black colors in light academia. Like these aesthetics follow color schemes. And we can learn a lot from understanding these aesthetics and color schemes and what sorts of associations we can make, because they convey way more than we actually think. These colors and are curated to express a certain message. And these things we need to be aware of when we're making characters, because as cheesy as it is, a picture is 1,000 words. It'll say a lot for sure. Okay.